Don't let your kid head off to college or anywhere else without first signing a Health Care Directive. If they're 18 or older, they're a legal adult and you no longer have any right to their medical information or to advocate for them if they ever need help. Good news, it's really easy to get together, and in this video, I'll show you line by line how to get a healthcare directive in place for free. I'm Michael Jenkins, and as an estate planning attorney in California, we've seen one too many horror stories of a child going off to college, getting into some trouble, and a parent frantically calling hospitals who won't release any medical information, won't let them advocate on behalf of their child because the child's 18 or older. And that includes the really difficult decisions, like whether or not we continue treatment. Getting a free healthcare directive in place before they head off for college is going to make sure if they ever need help that you can step in and advocate on their behalf. Now make sure you smash like and subscribe on this video, and let's jump right in, show you how to get it done. Now the first thing you want to do, of course, is find the document to use. Most states will have a free version of a healthcare directive or medical power of attorney for you to use. So jump on Google, type in statutory healthcare directive for your state, whatever that may be. You're going to want to make sure you click on a government site, .gov. Don't pay a third-party vendor for this. There's free versions online, and if you're going to pay someone, pay an estate planning attorney to make sure that it gets done correct. Now, if you're in California, I've done this step for you. In the description of the video, there's a hyperlink that's going to take you directly to the medical directive provided by the Office of the Attorney General in California. Now, once you have your healthcare directive form, of course, you got to know how to fill it out. So I'll walk you through each of the fields here and how we would commonly use this. Now, this is California's healthcare directive document, but each state is going to have something very similar. It may look a little bit different, but most of the fields and the subjects are going to follow the same basic track. Make sure you follow this video through to the end, though, because one of the most important pieces is actually at the very end of this document. Now, the first page is just general information about the document. It's something that your child should read before they go through and fill this out with you. Now, the second page of the document is part one. This is where we'll start to make some of our decisions. The first section is who we want to make decisions for us if we can't make them on our own. Typically, this is going to be a parent. We would just enter their name here and their address and their phone number. If you have a separate work phone or a cell phone, you can include that there. As long as we have your best contact information, that's really what we want here. If we want to name a backup agent, that would typically be the other parent or another family member, then we can do so, but it is optional. We have to have one agent, of course, but if you want to name a backup, there's room to do that. And there's also room to name a third backup as well. And these just become an order of priority. So if the first person doesn't answer the phone, we'll call the next person. And if they don't answer, we'll call the third person. Having one or two is usually solid, but if you've got enough family to pull from, having three agents is of course great as well. Section 1.2 allows us to limit authority of your agent if we want to. Typically, if we're setting this up for a child going off to college, I wouldn't really recommend limiting this unless there's something that we feel very strongly about. The default is if we don't do anything in 1.2, then your agent's going to have full authority to act and make decisions for you. Section 1.3 defines when your agent's authority becomes effective. Now, if we do nothing here, then the default is when the primary physician determines that the person signing this form can't make decisions on their own, that's when the agent named in 1.1 or the successors, if 1.1 isn't available, that's when they can step in and start to make medical decisions. Usually pretty straightforward. You stop answering your healthcare team, then we'll go ahead and call your agent. We do have the option though, if we check this box, it becomes an immediate power and it allows our agent to start to advocate for us immediately. So it includes our agent in our healthcare decisions immediately. It's not only upon incapacity. Section 1.4 is just a little bit of legalese here that says if your agent is acting on your behalf, they have to be acting in your best interest and according to your wishes. They can't just do whatever they want. In Section 1.5, the primary purpose here is to direct disposition of remains. And that sounds terrible. But this is where you're going to express any preference between burial or cremation, whether you want to authorize an autopsy, those kind of wishes here. The most common thing would just be a quick blurb, prefer to be buried. Or if we take one from a past client that was fun, I wish to be cremated and for my ashes to be launched into space. That was kind of a fun one, so we'll include it in the example in this video. If there's no preference, you just leave this blank and your agent can ultimately decide. God forbid if this ever comes into fruition. You do not have to express wishes here. It's only if you have a preference. 1.6 is just saying if we're ever in court for a conservator, that's a guardian of an adult. Your conservator is going to be the person that you named on the first page. So whoever's serving as your medical agent, we want them to be the conservator as well. Part 2 of the document document is where we get into some of the heavy and sometimes difficult decisions. Try not to put too much thought into this and don't let it hang you up from doing the document, because the most important thing is naming the medical agent on the first section. This section becomes more guidance than anything else, but it is important to think through. 2.1 is the pull the plug or not to pull the plug question. So if we're ever in an irreversible coma, physicians have said we're never going to wake up, we're just going to be in a vegetative state, there's no real good chance of this ever turning around. Do we want to make you comfortable and let you go, or do we want to keep trying no matter what, forever and ever, regardless of quality of life? That's kind of your two choices there. Again, don't let this hang you up from completing the document. I would say if you're wishy-washy or you really don't want to put a lot of thought into it, go with this top option, because that then gives the flexibility to the parents or the medical agent without being boxed into a corner. 2.2 is really just saying, if I'm in this state and I'm ever, in a coma or I can't make decisions on my own, please make sure I'm comfortable. Usually don't really advise adding too much to 2.2. Section 2.3 is a very flexible section. If you have other wishes about healthcare treatment or what you do or don't want done, you can include it here. You can also attach additional sheets if you need. If you have different wishes between what these options are up here, you want to expand on them, or you just have very detailed wishes around what you do or don't want, perhaps religious decisions, you can write those down here, include another page, whatever you need to do to express those wishes. Part 3 of the document is going to deal with organ donation, whether or not we want to be an organ donor. In 3.1, if we want to be an organ donor, then we'll check this box here. Yes, you may have dealt with this at the DMV, but it's still important to have consistent wishes on your healthcare directive when we're filling this out. So if we want to be an organ donor, check this box. The default is, if we say yes to organ donation, then we're okay with donation for transplant therapy, research, and education, the 4 categories of organ donation. If you want to exclude any of these reasons, you just strike through on your document. So a lot of people are thinking about transplant, and maybe they're not so okay with these other reasons. If you want to exclude them, just strike through, and that's all that you have to do. Similarly, if you had other restrictions you wanted to include, like I'm okay with donating most things, but not this particular organ, you can write that in here anytime. Part 4 is a spot for you to include who your primary physician is. It's optional. You don't have to do that, but if you would like to include that information, you can do so here. And if you have a backup in case your first physician isn't available, then you can do that as well. Now, part 5 of the document is really where I want you to focus on to make sure we sign this and get it executed in a way that it's going to work and we're not going to have any issues when we down the line if we have to use the document. Now, whoever's creating the document, they put their name here. It says your college kid in this scenario. We'll put their address, whatever their current address is, and if this changes because they go off to college, that's fine. It's just at the time of executing the document, this is where they live. Now, you have 2 options on how we sign. We can sign this in front of 2 witnesses. And as you see here, there's a lot of requirements for witnesses. And there's nothing wrong with it. California law does allow for 2 witnesses, as long as we check that they meet these requirements. You can sign in front of 2 witnesses who basically attest that they watched you sign the document. Now, oftentimes we don't recommend using the 2 witness option because that's usually where an issue is going to come up when we go to use the document. One of the witnesses wasn't qualified or didn't fill out everything we needed, or maybe a kid is going to school out of state and that other state has different witness requirements. This is where a potential hangup could happen, as rare as it may be. The second way to get your document completed involves a notary, and that's what we typically recommend. The notary form is here, and you would basically just bring this to a notary and wait to sign it until you're in front of the notary. They'll fill out everything here. Any notary is going to know how to complete this last page, but they'll put their seal next to their signature. And if you have the document notarized, there's way less chances of it ever, being called into issue in the future. There's tons of different places to have a document notarized. So we recommend having your kid sign in front of a notary just to make sure we don't have any issues in using the document later. This page here is only if someone's in a nursing facility, so you don't have to complete that. And that'll just stay blank. That's totally fine. Now, once you have your document signed and notarized, you're good to go. Take a breath of fresh air, knowing that you can advocate for your child in case, God forbid, they ever need it. Make a copy of your document. It's good to scan in an electronic copy and maybe email yourself a copy of that document so that if you ever need it in a pinch, you can access it through your phone. Now remember, Mom and Dad, you need your plan in place too. So make sure you have a high quality estate plan in place to take care of your own business, in addition, of course, to taking care of your kids. Again, if you found this content helpful, hit the like and subscribe button. That helps us a lot. And if you have any questions, drop them in the comments below.